thank you, Oliver, and thank you that I heard you voted, but thank you so much for having us and inviting us and voting for us. And thank you, Mitra, for organizing it, that you actually flight us here. Today we would like to share our passion into like performance and performative design, and what kind of roles can graphic designer actually, let's say, perform. Because we were asking, oh yeah, Vit has to measure my time for 45 minutes because I somehow set up 45 hours here. So we should just start like this. Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself? No. Okay. You can do it.
Yeah, no.
So that's us. And this is Vit.
And this is Tereza.
And the little heart there, these are all the people we work with during the time. These are like type designers. These are people, I don't know who else, interns and friends and other professionals, musicians, for example. Yeah. So we used to call ourselves like Vampire Supermodernism Communication Design Studio. We are now from Amsterdam, but originally we are coming from Brno, which is really close to Vienna. So when we try to explain where we're coming from, we always say it's just like kind of village next to Vienna, and then people have a picture of it. Okay, back in the days, we wanted to work together and in our studio and create some sort of like a safe space to actually have a family, have kids, because we are also a couple. So we wanted to create this kind of happy place where to work. And we used to believe in graphic design that it's something like a printed matter. So we didn't know so much about it before we moved to Netherlands. And we kind of thought that if we follow the beauty canons, like let's say the Swiss grids and typographic rules, everything will be okay, and that will be the good design. But of course we learned and we realized by practice and experiments that it's completely different. So today I want to show bits of our experimental research on performative design and participatory design, and ultimately a game development. So that's how we get so far. Our interest in action and chance in design processes led us to ask a question: how can we design by performing? Is that even possible as designers? Is that possible? How performance is relevant to us, designers? And can viewers of our design be more activated by that design? Can they become participants or, involved in those designs? So, because as designers we work with information. That's the core, and we realize information, it doesn't exist as a static media. It's something that is fluid or moving, or it could be locked in the networks, but also in interactions which are human interactions. So we had to rethink, or we felt the urge to kind of rethink the surface production in terms of action, in terms of performance. Yeah, here I'm just trying to prove that these posters are actually printed, so I'm really trying to show you that it's really not just online Photoshop thing. So contemporary design is about shift of interests. From object-centric process to kind of chance-driven acts. And here we try to accommodate few interesting terms. I mean, we can talk about all of those, but we don't want to make like let's say, philosophy lecture almost. We really want to show it through examples, all of these things. So I don't want to stop so much here, but these are these kind of performative aspects that we kind of analyzed. We look at the history of performance art and the language from there. We took that because somehow, yeah, I can explain all of those, but maybe we can just like go to history examples and see how viewers can be emancipated. So to analyze these aspects that you just saw, I wanted to show it on few examples and demonstrated approach on like, let's say I look at the 20s, I look at history of art, but actually where art merged with design. So for example, here you can see Karl Zeige. This is a Czech modernist artist or graphic designer at the time. The term wasn't used right at the time, but he was editor of a magazine called Nine Powers. In Czech would be Devět sil. And he asked a famous dancer at the time to perform an alphabet for him. And this is for me like super unique example of how alphabet and lettering could be activated by the performance of the dancer, by the body, action and body. And here we move into 60s in the Fluxus, and this is more like conceptual approach of how they as artists deals with audience. So let's say if this would be the artwork here in this lecture hall, in the classroom here, basically you would come here and I would give you these papers, and the only action that would happen would be basically that you would have to leave, and that's it. But I really admire how Fluxus, and not just George Brecht, but the whole Fluxus group, how they actually deals with design and typography within their projects. You might know all these famous flux boxes, like those boxes with different objects inside, and that's fantastic. That's something really inspiring for me. We can shift in time a bit. This is California and Sister Corita Kent. I'm like a huge fan of her, and she is really like my big idol. Of course, she is designer of that stamp of love, and at her time, she really well appropriated the language of commerce. She appropriated the language of commercial design at the time in States, but she used it, instead of spreading consumerism, she used it to spread message of love, which was unique for me. And she was able with her, she was teaching at art school at the time, and she was also practicing like a Catholic nun. So she was like a admirable person combining two completely different lives. And she actually became like a really huge star because of that art, because of those prints she was making, and huge gatherings she was making in California. So then she was basically excommunicated from the church, from the Catholic Church. And there you can see Guy de Conter. And for example, there I was fascinated how he used like simple typography, really minimalistic style, but as a props for his stage designs. And he basically designed whole situations, and these actors there, they were actually half improvising and half they knew the script, what should happen, but it was like a whole improvisation with different objects. And these objects were like carefully designed by Guy de Conter, and those were inspired by different riddles or game with words. Just super inspiring thing for me. Okay, wow, we have a storm outside. So maybe while you're looking at Oskar Schlemmer, Bauhaus, Triadic Ballet, this is reenaction from Stuttgart 1988, but actually this was designed in 1922. I would like to read a bit of, it's like a compressed text from my kind of longer text, Action to Surface. So, although the typical result of graphic designers' labor is surface, designers are increasingly involved in actions, happenings, and events. Contemporary craft has to be presented together with the craftsman. The notion of a person performing craftsmanship is what makes the product valuable. The new value is hidden in the presence of the author. Graphic designers are producers of millions of surfaces, service providers, visual translators, researchers, autonomous creators, and system engineers. But recently, designers have appropriated the role of performers. We might understand the performance as a capacity to transform the situation and activate audience. It's an act with a unique and unpredictable result, something that couldn't be easily mass-produced. The sparkle of performance is chance, and chance brings unknown relations and outcomes. So basically anything can happen. Performances, as well as graphic design, are temporary and ephemeral. They exist and disappear in their evenness. The design discourse is frequently about experience and event, rather than about the image or text. Graphic design is no longer limited as an object-centric practice. The new value is hidden in the presence of its author and its evenness. Okay, let's skip this beautiful video. So what do you need to make performative graphic design? What are the ingredients? I tried to make some sort of cookbook for you. If you want to try it and test it yourself, here are the first three. You need to use your body. There needs to be something happening. That's the action, performative, the action part. And somebody needs to see it. It's a bit difficult if you just do it at home by yourself and there's no documentation or there's no living audience that you count with. You can actually record something and count with online audience, that's fine, but there needs to be this intention of audience there. And of course, are you doubting? Okay. So, and then it needs to, evenness means that it needs to happen within the limited space in limited time. So when does the performance start and end? This needs to be kind of defined by you as designer, and also where it happens. Is it a stage full of props like Guy de Conte, or is it maybe just this classroom? Where is it happening? Or is it happening on your website? Is it more like interactive? What's happening there? And then you have to count with that anything can happen, as I said, and that's the element of chance. So maybe you're performing, but the audience, somebody stands up, somebody does something else, something unexpected. So that's the chance. And for us, the design then becomes more processual. Is the process itself. Okay, let's go through this 7 performing designers. I would like to show some examples. So you can use your body as a tool. I use my body as a tool to try to activate viewer. And I did this video called Playber, New Workaholism. And that was just for that, to show how we perform as post-Fordist workers. So the performance from performing arts, let's say, was connected with the performance in job, in work, the one that should be measured. Because working time and leisure time become unified in one never-ending shift, and that's how we find ourselves in these kind of post-Fordist conditions. We have to work all the time, right? Like, let's say we take care of our Instagram accounts. So, I mean, before you go to bed, you probably check it, and then you're thinking what will be the next photo you're gonna put there, and maybe you're taking photo of yourself with your poster, and that's, again, like this kind of performance for this online audience, and that's you, like a post-Fordist, ultimate post-Fordist worker, working all the time. So that means that your free time is basically merged into the working hours. And it's great because everybody says you are flexible, you're great because your flexibility is the thing we're going to pay for, but the flexibility means you're kind of locked in this never-ending shift. So basically every hour of our play and every hour of our shared megabytes and shared data generates profit to somebody else, let's say to Facebook, Instagram, and other social media. Snapchat. Hours.
You're promoting your brand, you know where to stand. You're promoting your life, you recognize. You're working, you're sharing, you play, you're sleeping, you're sleeping, you're dreaming.
Yeah, you can see it at home. It's online, so you can watch the rest. The most important message was said: you are workaholics working all the time for somebody else. And basically, oh, sorry, I shouldn't say basically. We set up this kind of immaterial factory in our studio, and I'm this kind of immaterial worker laboring all the time. The song and the lyrics was done in collaboration with Ventolin. That's the heart in our studio, a musician we like to work with. So basically we give him the lyrics that comes out of the research that we make, and he's completely free to interpret it with what kind of music he wants, and we always agree because we love what he's doing. You can also become recording machine, for sure. So what's happening? We were thinking to exhibit the situation itself, but how do you exhibit situation? How do you exhibit evenness? Yeah, these are challenges we make to ourselves to make more experimental design work. What if then we create posters that are just becoming props? So we design those posters carefully, but then they become, let's say, destroyed or touched during this event. So here, the poster was kind of overlaid by sort of recording technique, and that was painting. How to catch situation into a surface, into these poster props, because situation consists of space, time, performing designer, and also visitors that were coming. And we worked with these given limits, like let's say low budget. We needed to have discussion like with the visitors. We wanted to activate them by talking to them. And we had limited amount of hours, so it was just 2 working days in the gallery during performance festival. So we divided it by time, and it was called Collective Portrait of a Crowd. And I tried to catch the situation, so being present together with the visitors in the given time and space. Each visitor was like a carrier of unique properties. I used to say he was carrier of data, so I could see the body as a cluster of data. Let's say your face, it's really unique, so you carry your unique data that could be taken from you. Or these people willingly shared the colors of their lips, colors of their hair, and I would record that into those posters. They could choose whatever. I think there is a dog here, this one, so they could also choose things, living things that were there. And every part in that poster, let's say one poster was 1 hour of my labor, of my work, and that's why it was divided into 20 fields. So I had to meet a new visitor every 3 minutes and fill it in. So that was my working time for those 2 days. So that's why I have done the series of the posters for each hour of work. You see number 20 there is empty because I just stopped working. Yeah. But when you see designer's process, it's good to be ready. These are some boards that we don't show so much because this is how we prepare our schemes for what will happen. How do we imagine that the performance will happen? What happens with audience, for example? So here with the mask makeup freckles that happened in Korea, I will show that later. But this is like, because let's say the client or the gallery asks you what will happen, because you need to give them more exact plan. As designer, if you would be artist, I guess you can do whatever you want, but as designers we have this kind of service responsibility. We really want to deliver something they know about. And that's how we planned movement of props, movement of me and assistants, let's say. Yeah, I was here, the black dot, that's me. These are assistants, and then people. The blank dots. Or we send sketches like this. So this is something in the PDF. It's all about planning. And we see them as sort of like a scores of performances. So the mask makeup freckles that I just showed you the scheme for, that happened at Hyundai Design Library in Seoul. And we were questioning how our face mutates during the time and what are the different trends put on top of our faces. Because in Korea they have like the huge issue of basically they have this trend that they want to look all basically the same, that the makeup should be super unifying, let's say. And there's a lot of facial surgery going on, so that was quite interesting to actually show them the opposite. So show them really face without any makeup, full of freckles, because when you have freckles, you cannot put so much makeup on top because those areas would be kind of without freckles, so you would have to cover the whole face. So you're limited by that. So I asked Korean people to put even more freckles, to make the face even more natural. We were also inspired by the diagrams of a cage information, and we wrote this text that I just don't want to read now. But basically, my face was restaged into a canvas, into a surface where action take place. Because face is not just like a physical expression of our identity, but also surface of culture layer, social layer, and economical position. So our face is carrier of a lot of data. The preparation, so from 200 stickers, we painted by hand. These were becoming these facial freckles. With curators, we selected only 400 good ones. During performance, me, the designer, took the role of Korean beauty standard, so I was the beauty standard, and I tried to introduce the whole situation there. Mobile hats, they were spread into the space, and we asked people to add more freckles on my face during this kind of opening performative event. And with that costume, I somehow become part of that whole surface, of the whole situation. Wearing that, I somehow become one of these. And here you can see how people are disobedient. So you tell them, put the freckles into these empty, colorful zones. And of course, they try to put freckles on freckles again, so they're cheating. So that's the chance, and you have to be prepared for this chance, that they always find a creative way how to cheat. So through performance, I see myself that I can design situation, I can become surface, and let surface to become part of me, to take my role. So if you start understanding design as a process, then the borders between objects and actors and media and surfaces are somehow like dissolving. And all these elements become part of a situation, of this dynamic process of emotional excitement. Really emotional. Vit is taking a photo of that. And final outcome. But for me, the most inspiring is the situation itself and not that installation that stays there for some time. You can be exorcist. So, inspired by computer games and how you see your hand in the first perspective from the player from action games, we try to see ourselves as designers as some sort of almost like exorcists or magicians, that we have some kind of special powers to design, because this creative power could be, for people who don't do design, it should be something like a magic. They think, I order poster, and poster is done, but you have to make it. So this was more like a evil magician almost. And here's more like a good one, a real exorcist, like a priest, wearing anti-fear costume. I performed enchanting ritual on the street, and that was because I wanted to fight against fear of Western citizen. Project was called Shadows in Paradise, and I don't know whether it's still online, Vit, is it?
I don't think so.
No? Like, Vit made the website for it, but okay, it's offline. Maybe you can try, maybe it's still there. But every minute and every second, there is a different combination of the fears of Western citizen on that clock. With that comes a poster that you can actually make your own clock, because we made it exactly, it's A2, and it's exactly, that clock is exactly fitting IKEA clock, so you can make your own IKEA fear clock. Double-sided. This is our tryout that we just purified this weekend because it was dusty. Bring clock, this fear clock brings different combination of fears. So you can see those. So now would be something like financial crisis to pollution. But what was most interesting during that research, that many of my friends that I asked, they said they fear of being obsolete. And they were mostly designers, so that's something we're asking ourselves all the time with all these technologies we have around and how fastly they are actually shifting. So How to stop this obsoleteness? Where is our position in design? You can be a conductor. That means, for me, guiding audience to be part of the design, to participate. Because design, as I said, it's like a process. So why not to open it for other people? You can just enjoy the process of design yourself in your studio as designer, but the other ones can also join in, participate, work with you. So it's basically about activating people. Here we ask them in a simple way, on like a small flyer, to create a landscape for me, for those performing bodies. There's a cafeteria in this art institution, and every time people buy a coffee or a tea, and they basically pay there, they would be given this flyer with stickers. So from this empty wall with performing bodies, that were actually, the positions were inspired by Peter Brechel and Hieronymus Bosch. You can actually see how that grows over the time. So the time aspect and playing with this ephemerality and growth and process over the time, you can see how it fills itself like this. This was one of the final stages over 3 months. Yeah, over 3 months. So people were asked to create a landscape for me. And again, you see how disobedient they were. So they kind of break the rules and put stickers over your face and everywhere. They create even a bra for me somewhere. Yeah, over there in the corner. And they make like the horns. Yeah, like a weird swimsuit or something. Another simple sticker task happened again in Korea, and there we tested that we should give them more rules, because when they become really happy about putting stickers, and there is no rule, you can have only 1 sticker, they would go like 10 times and put 10 stickers, or maybe 100 stickers. So from that simple idea of like researching what kind of future type of society they would like to have, that was our topic. So I performed 4 different members of that society, inspired by your favorite game, Lemmings. Because do you know Lemmings, some of you? It's a really old game, I know.
I know it.
Yeah, so
That's how old I am.
you have to save them, right? And what happens if you don't save them? They all explode, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you see how capitalists see our value of our bodies, right? We're just something that can explode, you know. So, yeah, that's the sad thing about them. But we are so inspired by different roles of those lemmings. So that's why you can inhabit empty planet, which is like a wasted space in the space. And that was participative performance, where participants terraformed new planets. They had to settle the sticker of the future member of society on that surface in the planet. Simply, again, by placing sticker on the wall. But now they could choose from 4. And yeah, it kind of growed, and they again break the rules, so they were playing with the sticker itself, and they tried to insert also other stickers there. And then they just did different things. I mean, they were wearing the stickers like this and on their heads and everywhere. Yeah. So that's how I come into think that you can become environment. So how performing body works inside the 3D space, the 3D world. Because often, let's say from Hollywood movies and from all the movies, we see that the 3D space is something that makes the reality of it's also reality, but the real physical space around us, our environment, more beautiful, more nicer. But what if we think about the 3D space in its natural conditions, that's the space, and we try to insert ourselves, our bodies, into that space? What happens? So you don't try to simulate the beautiful environment we have around us, but you rather kind of insert yourself into that weird space without rules, right? Without physics. in this project, we decided to merge with identity of a musician from Singapore to form a new ultimate hybrid identity. Yeah, let's just see it. I don't want to talk about it so much. You can see it online. I kind of cut it so you can see the ending. So there was only one video with the music and the rest was just different parts of it. So you can see everything at the same time. What if you become superhero? Do you sometimes feel like really, really angry about design scene or about the, let's say, industry? No? Or just angry? Just angry? About teachers maybe sometimes? No? No? You're so calm? Oh. Okay. Because I thought when you're angry, you can invest that, let's say you can insert all this negativeness into something positive again. So instead of being aggressive and being hater online and, you know, say, you're still dead, he's still dead, and this is copying somebody, you're calm again, and you can make a new project out of it. So I tried to become my own superhero, and in this like difficult world to live, I don't want to say fuck up world, but in this world to live, I needed energy and I needed power from different philosophers. So I designed swords. And I used Deleuze's sword, that's my philosopher, or Zizek. I also use sword of Havel as a thinker. And I almost see myself as a partisan, really like fighting against the bad mood, but also fighting against bad conditions in creative industry, against low payments, low fees, against not paid invoices. I fight against all of that. So, yeah. I think the lecture will be like 15 minutes longer, I'm sorry. Right? It's our short film, and I try to cut it into 3 most important parts for you. So it's just shorter than a short film. That's it. So that's how you work with your anger, right? You can be magic circle creator, and here we come to the last topic, which is games. So maybe you heard about game theories and game mechanisms, and what's the magic circle when the player is alive in the reality in his own world, like here we are, but actually we can play a game and then we would suddenly become our characters or different role-play characters, and we would be part of this magic circle. So that's why I kind of mention Huizinga Homo Ludens and the book, because that was quite important for us, and how we can work with the situation and with people, with participants, and they can become players, because that's the not easiest way, but that's the way how the performativity and action guides us towards to. We were approached to design a festival focused on Anthropocene. During our visual research, we became inspired by a collection of fossils of our civilization, by fossil cabinets and geological sample repositories. And after all, we wanted to create a stone. Also, at the time, Trump was elected, so we wanted to create a stone as a protesters to kind of throw it into the face of Trump. So that we can throw it to the whole kind of face of this rotten part of the capitalism. And we envisioned fossils as the only remains of our times. So what will happen when everything is over? How are we gonna be fossilized? How are people gonna be pickled, fossilized? Noise of Being Festival was asking what does it mean to be human nowadays, but we wanted to look at it from perspective of, let's say, some future aliens landing on Earth and finding us in the geological layers that we kind of destroyed here. Yeah, there are so many artists, and there was no time to really take care of all of them because we wanted to have short teaser. Nobody wants to watch like really long teasers, so we just put them behind. We say, yeah, sorry, it's alphabetical order, doesn't mean who is star, who is not. It's just gonna be hidden. But what's important, this festival produces a book, and for launch of this book, we wanted to somehow, we had like a special idea for a book launch. So we wanted to take the form of a book into next level. So what happens when the book becomes environment? When book becomes place where knowledge is shared. Not just inside the book, but inside different space. When book becomes transformed, perhaps into a game. So that was our first experiment, to kind of create a book as a place that you can walk through. And you can collect those books when you're inside the book. So different spreads of the book, those spreads created walls. Yeah, this is how you die in that game. You're gonna fall down and die. So during the book launch, there was amazing score. There was like a pro player coming to win that book, because if you're gonna win, you're gonna be given the book. So there was a very intelligent boy from Sandberg Institute, which is Masters of Gerrit Rietveld Academy, and he had a brother pro player. So he just had this great idea that he's gonna win the book with his brother, and that's how it happened. And nobody ever collected more than like 95 books. That's impossible, basically. And we repeated the concept for second edition of this Sonic X Festival. So we just learned from the previous version and we extended the visual identity based on gaming, based on experiencing this environment. So you are this time focused and you are like inhabiting empty academia because the topic was academy. And it was like a place where you can unpack artistic knowledge, but very empty one without any educators, so you can educate yourself there. The shape was inspired by VR glasses that we placed the virtual world into. Different versions, how it also develops during those months you're working on it. And our motivation was again to have a design open for the visitor. So next to the book, that is always part of that festival, because there's like so many really inspirational and intelligent people coming together. That's what they need to produce a book. We again try to make a teaser that is recorded only from the Unity, only from the game. This one is longer, so I will skip it. We are actually making it on time, we realize, so it's great. And that's the final, let's say, example of all these performative things that you can experiment on and then maybe perhaps end with the games. And that's what we actually want to do here with some selected students that are coming for the workshop that we are giving here for next 3 days. And that's called the Patriarchizing Pixel Lens. And we're going to make this design workshop on games and focused on creating your own hero or heroine inside a new environment. And this time we wanted to make it actually 2D. So this is what we prepared. This is like a template for the students here. And they're gonna have fun with the game editor, so they can completely change this template from scratch. Of course, you can upload the background images, you can upload different collision objects.
Online game.
Oh yeah, you can say it.
And it's online game.
So it will be available online as well. But what's the best? That we can actually invite all of you to come on Friday at 4. To see the results of the game here upstairs in the top floor. We're gonna present the results with probably some posters, some beautiful posters of the characters, of the environment and the games. So it's gonna be a play session. Okay, thank you so much. There is a question there.
So when I continue, you said at one point if you would be artist, so then at the same time you showed many works which were exhibited in the gallery environment. So where this line between artwork and design is for you?
Yeah, it's more, we basically do what we think, wow, really fits to the situation, really fits to the client, to environment, to the space where it should happen, that design or that piece, that project. So we see it more as a project, and really depends on the client or on the curator how they frame it. If they frame it as art, it's really their responsibility because we deliver design that we think is the best for it. But maybe Vit has a different opinion. express?
Yeah, it's very like institutional based.
So how this transition from a curator to the client happens exactly?
Curator is usually client. I mean, it's how like industry is working. Like if you are considered to be artist, then there is a different way how they deal with you. Sometimes somebody consider us as artist, and then
They confuse us as artists.
yeah, and sometimes I think you have more freedom as an artist, probably.
Yeah, you have more freedom, but somehow.
I mean, we don't want to open this discussion because it's very long and heavy discussion.
And it's almost never-ending discussion that we usually have. So it's difficult, huh? But I mean,
it's not difficult. It's very.
It's a good question.
Question basically depends on institution. I mean, it's not.
I don't expect like a right answer.
Now we would like to know the answer. But maybe it's not like a right question because we don't have to solve it. Basically, it's more the question for institutions. Of course, sometimes they need you to like do some work, and they consider you as a designer, and then you have to do completely different thing than as an artist. That's easy, but
it's not easy. But sometimes it happens that they ask us for visual identity of that exhibition, that we haven't shown those identities and posters and printed matter and like just the Sonic X Festival identity. But next to it, they also ask you if they exhibit something to the topic. They also ask you to make a piece for it, and that's their own responsibility to ask you as designer to also deliver a piece, to actually make a commission for them.
actually we started as artists because Tereza studied intermediate.
Yeah, but I was really bad artist, and I really wanted to be a good designer.
And it was super painful to be artist because then you can't ask people what they want. But if you are a designer, you can just ask what do you want, and then you do it, and you're happy.
Yeah, but there's still like this kind of service layer which we like. It's a service layer that you ask, and they kind of reply, and you can have discussion or debate what they want, and you try to make it fitting to that, which you really like.
It's also like as a designer, you have more freedom than as an artist, because as an artist you can't ask too many questions, because then strange when artists start asking what should I do. But
The artists, they're more egoistic in a way, they're self-driven, they really do what they want, so yeah, you know, Wien are actionalists, right? So those were artists, and they would do performance completely different way, right? Yeah. Also, what's maybe also good that if you're artist, you usually work as individual. There's this egoistic part. You're one, usually. Yeah. But as designer, you can collaborate, and we really like to work with others. We really like collaboration.
Like theoretically, we are more like, let's say, materialist or new materialist or a little bit neo-Marxist thing. So we really don't believe in this like aesthetic theories of art as something which is essential, completely outside our economical, physical world. So then we really don't solve this question if there is some different essence in art than in design, because we think it's, for us, it's more important to somehow see how these things work in a creative industry, in how can people access them, what can do art, what can do design, and question these things. Because so.
It's in a way weird that there is this boiler even, so that's why I was asking, because you kind of wrote about.
But it really depends on theory.
If you would be, so that's the question. Thank you.
It depends on paradigm, how you see it. I mean.
Yeah, but once happened to us recently that we were asked to make commission, like a design game. So it was still graphic design for us, as we reflected the visual identity inside the game. Again, that's something we are testing now. And they asked, of course, for a funding of that piece. And they asked 2 different Dutch institutes. So first they went to, it's called Stimulierfonds, and they should support designers. And Stimulierfonds say, but you're asking for a commissioned art piece, so go to the Mondrian funding. So these clients, the gallery, they went to the Mondrian, asked for money for us, and they said, yeah, but Tereza, she studied graphic design at KBK, so she's designer, she has this paper for being designer, so she cannot have Mondrian funding. So then we had to design it, we shouldn't say, but we just did it, right? For zero.
There are some essential differences between art and design. Like in art you can solve. For example, as we are using performance, it's not really good, I think. Because sometimes it can be understood as some presentation or this kind of disgusting practice. Because
yeah, the kind of star-making practice, which is something more connected with the post-Fordism and how design operates in that labor area, let's say.
Because real artistic performance, there are some qualities which are very difficult, useful in design, like this transformation of viewer or yourself or some inner feelings, which we really try to somehow introduce to the design, but I think we are not very successful at the moment. So
we have to try harder. Okay, do you have another question?
Is there something that you still remember or that you took from your time in Czech Republic, or is it like that your whole experience of being a graphic designer came from Holland and you studied there?
For me, it's definitely Holland, because in Czech I was just sitting there and looking what's happening online. I mean, not just Tumblrs, but I was just reading different things, and somehow we felt, so why we are just observing that when it already happened and somebody writes article about it, why we are not part of that scene, where we can just move a few 100 kilometers there, and I think, yeah.
I mean, it's...
For you?
I mean, we never studied design in Czech. We studied in the Netherlands, so we really don't have connection to it. And there is completely like lack of theory or any like ambition to understand design as more as some service or to be cool with nice posters, which are useless. And
in Czech.
pay for it, but
yeah, but I mean, is there some kind of different imagery there that you grow up in your land? So I think if you see still some influence of that in your work, or it's completely changed by this.
Yeah, I think there's not so much influence. There's no influence, I would say, because there, as I saw it, as I'm following the scene, what's happening, they have great type designers. It's really good scene there, around this Prague school there. But I mean, it's mostly about aesthetics. Like, try to ask these guys what's behind those forms, what's behind those shapes, what's behind those letters, why they designed it. And they maybe answer like, yeah, it was a project.
actually in Czech Republic, or maybe it's different, but ask somebody who lives in Czech. Don't believe me or us. But the thing is, there is no like theory about design. So basically, there was the purpose why to do Czech design was to build like Czech national style, which was in 1919 or 1920. But then after revolution, in communist, it was easy because everything was international. Some communist movement were international, so also the aesthetic were international, modernism were international. Of course, you can find some local differences, but
you were
the locality
basically
is not the topic in the theory.
But you were looking into the history. So if you study design in Czech, you look at the history and examples of history, which is great to know. It's really cool. But also it's good to kind of lift up and look into the future. And that's what I really like about Dutch education, that we look into the future and our role. And somehow I learned that during the first year. I didn't know that I am like let's say I am a living person. I am a responsible citizen. And what does it mean to be a responsible designer? So that's why my projects are like kind of questioning the field of labor, of payments in design, of our performativity. Because for me, performance can bring new values. During the time when something is happening, it's not just financial exchange, the one from the market, that you sell your work, you sell your art, you sell your design, but you actually exchange with those people something like, I don't want to say, but something like feelings or something different. And that's maybe important. So through those projects, somehow we can try to imagine like different possible futures, let's say the better ones, because if we just keep it for the bad guys, they will design all the nationalisms around, and that's it, and that's done. So we are trying to still imagine different things, and that's what I learned there. I wouldn't know. I would just do some tumblers if I would stay in Czech. Okay. Maybe last question.
How do you feel about Marina Abramović and her work?
She's great. I mean, she did quite well.
She's great. I really like that meme. If you know that meme on Marina Abramović, how she tries to sell the pills and pills against a headache and stuff. That's my favorite performance of hers. Yeah, you should look it up if you don't know it. Yeah, I mean, for example, this transformative power of performance is not just our term. That's what we read in a book by Erika Fischer-Lichte, and she writes about transformative power of performance. But as an example, she took one of the performances, the earliest ones, the most violent body performances of Marina Abramović. So, of course, she is like a big idol, but I have bigger idols like, of course, Sister Corita Kent or Nina Payne, or Vali Export, or other women in performance fields that were fantastic, and yeah, now they are old grandmas. Okay.
I have one last question. Why does Vit never appear in any of your performances?
Our strategy. Yeah, there's so many girls studying design, but where are they after the school? Are you just like married? I mean, we are married, but like, where are you?
I hate this performance thing. I just do it because... No, really, I just do it because I like my wife. And I would rather do just coding and some very strict rational-based design without this human thing. So. But
that's why it's interesting to have this super controversial dialogue. That's why it kind of works. If it would be just optimistic without questioning performance, without this negativeness, it would be just so lame. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.